So another project I'm working on is my mother-in-law has a dining room table that she needs lowered, and since it's a fancy table and she actually needs it versus, you know, me being 2 hours away, come borrow it for a few weeks till I can fix it. I went and to the reuse store and found this table. It was a table from Pottery Barn, and the top's kind of messed up and carved into and everything else, so they had it for cheap, but it's the right color. It has the right kind of legs, meaning the square legs that fit into those sort of things, and then they bolt on. And the other thing is, this is a longer table than it is wide, whereas hers is square. So what I'm going to try and do is trim this down such that it's square, and I'm also going to trim the side pieces, kind of like where this line goes, and then round it off, and then put extra bracing underneath it to stiffen it up again, because I know this is to help stiffen it, but if I put another piece under there, kind of like this, if I attach that up underneath or similar, because that's like 1 inch by 2 inches or 1.5 inches, if I attach that up under to stiffen it, and that should allow me to shrink this, because that way when we lower it you don't lose all this space that you can't get your legs under. You'll be able to have more space to get your legs under. But yeah, I think that's going to work. So next I have to try and trim it, and even if it doesn't work, it was with the discount for being 50% off, it was $8. So if I do all this and it doesn't work, I at least have shorter legs that I can try and use on her table. I still may have to do similar trimming and such, but I have legs that will work. So even 4 legs like that is worth $8. But yeah, that's the next project. Get this cut down and ready to go. And then the plan is to use her existing tabletop on top of this, because right now she has an existing tabletop that has wings that slide out. So this plus her existing tabletop would be a similar thickness top to what she has now, but it will be lower, so I think that's going to work for what she needs. So, yep, that is the next project. And luckily, my bench is still all cleaned off, so I have space to actually make projects, which is really nice. The table adjustments are done. I used the table saw, and I cut a chunk out, and then I used a coping saw and cut these pieces out to give it the divot on each side. And what I cut out was that big. So this was just trimming basically just trimming the middle out. I think that's 12 inches wide, so it's either 11.5 or 12, somewhere in there. But I took that out, and then, since by default these came with holes where it had countersunk screws down into the tabletop, and due to trimming that piece out, this side was missing a hole, because that hole was actually about here. I used my countersink bit and drilled a hole and put the screw back in. So that should all work fine. It's the same basic depth as the previous holes, so that should work. And then I put a piece of 3/4 inch plywood that is friction fit down in the sides, which again, that is why table saws are awesome. They can get exact fits. And then I used screws about 2.5, 3 inches long, go in through the sides, so the screws probably come into about here. And I put 3 in each side, on both sides. So a total of 6 screws going into the plywood, and then a ton of screws going from the plywood into the top to give it extra stability. So I don't think this is going to have any issues, especially since I added this to hold it back down. I think that's going to work perfect. Plus, all these screws are going to end up holding it together, and therefore if you push on it, I think it's going to work great. So yeah, so that's the adjusted table. And again, when I take it up, probably not going to video it, but when I take it up, I will be putting the top that she has now on top of this, which is effectively underneath here, and that's going to stick out. So since this is a smaller overall table than her current base, but if we put the existing top on top of here with a combination of carpet tape and or screws, I may try and also screw up through, but the existing tabletop has 2 attachment points that makes it a floating top, and because it's heavy it stays. So I might try and drill holes through this, unless it ends up being right where this is attached. But then I could always just shift it slightly so it's not completely centered. And then try and still have it use that same attachment. So that way it could be floating on here, but because of the pin, it would hold it in an exact hole so it's not going to move back and forth. So it might be that just double-sided carpet tape plus the existing attachment will be enough to attach that to this. That might be nice. But I may add some additional screws too. It's going to be underneath, and as long as I'm careful and don't go up through, should be good. I didn't go up through this with any of those screws, so I think if I'm careful I should be fine. But yep, that's where we're at. So this is all ready to go.